Hi, I'm Kim, and you're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse escape and stay out of that horrible situation. Now, as we know, many victims keep returning to that mess, and never to end well, just more of the same. It's never going to change. So getting out and staying out is paramount to your recovery and future success. It's very hard to determine what your state of emotional wellness is going to be when you finally realize you have to leave. Now, chances are every aspect of your life has been meddled with, stomped on. You're probably an emotional wreck. You probably feel gutted. You probably feel like your entire being, your mind, your soul, your heart, everything has been stomped on. Well, it has been. Unfortunately, that's what you're not intended to do to you, to hurt you, break you, destroy your life. I mean, that's what they do. They are destroyers of human lives. It's very common for victims of narcissistic abuse when they first realize they have to leave, and during those early transitioning periods where you're experiencing night terrors, unexplained anxiety during the day. Now, certainly you're in a bit of an emotional conflict, because on one hand, you are just so happy and grateful to be out of that mess, but you are traumatized from it. Now, I've heard life coaches on YouTube actually recommend that you go to your doctor and get on medication. Now, this is some pretty negligent advice. You've just walked out of a very traumatic situation, and you need to get your emotional wellness back. The thing you need at this point is a dependency to barbiturates. And on top of that, why are you masking how you're feeling? I mean, you need to identify how you're feeling, and you need to experience this, and you need to heal this in a healthy way. Masking it with barbiturates is absolutely not the way to do this. Now, as I first started to plan my exit strategy, I did definitely identify and fully realize that I was a mental, physical, emotional wreck. So one of the things I did prior to leaving as part of my exit strategy was I had bought a juice extractor. I have a fairly clean diet to start with, but I really started to make some dietary changes. Juicing very regularly was one of those things. Primary organic raw food diet, making sure that my body and my brain were fully charged up, vitamins, minerals, nutrients. I was really working at improving my physical health through good eating. Another thing that I think is very important is because you can feel very crippled, and quite often, narcissistic abuse victims will become very much incapacitated. I really started to push the natural movement thing. Now, let's talk again briefly about the this for me is truly some of the worst advice I have ever heard provided by a life coach in my life. Now, back to the barbiturates for a minute. You have just come out of a situation, maybe weeks, months, years, possibly decades, of somebody altering your perception of reality. Barbiturates are not the answer now. I think that this is a good opportunity for you to get a much clearer and much more genuine sense of reality. Now, though my narc took everything from me, I had been quite a well-known art jewelry designer, interior designer, fairly well-respected artist here in Canada and internationally, and seed saver and micro-organic gardener. Now, Everything that was important to me had to be removed by this maniac. Maybe he saw it as competition. It may be something that I'd be able to, excel at, that, he wasn't a part of. So everything was squelched. But one of the first things I really did was really get back into seed saving and gardening. Now, I want to tell you statistically, people on barbiturates have on average a 10-year reduction in life expectancy, while gardeners have a 10-year increase in life expectancy. So if you're in a situation where you are extremely distressed, and likely you are, I would definitely consider gardening or the introduction of barbiturates at this point. Now, chances are your narc has really taken a lot from you, but if you are planning your exit strategy and you have absolutely internalized the fact that you have to leave, now is a good time to start looking back at the things you were passionate about before the introduction of this toxic person in your life. So I had quite a few past successes that I could reactivate in my life, and that gave me a very strong sense that out of this tremendous failure. But I knew beyond this failure there was a possibility for some really great personal successes. Another thing you're going to need to effectively execute your exit strategy is money. Now, if your narc is anything like mine, he's been all up in your money, and there's a very good likelihood he's checking your computer, looking at your bank statements, creeping your phone. So you need to hide, hoard, stash money. Now, I had a son I could give my money to who saved that for me, and I suggest that you find a way to get some money hidden. Now, my narc was a compulsive gambler, and it was nothing for him to go, into my bank account, use my debit card, take out hundreds of dollars in a day. Now, another thing about these lying thieves is, he would say to me, "But I paid you back." When? When? I had a vast amount of jewelry making supplies because I had been a career jewelry artist till my narc squelched that. And I rented a storage unit, and I started slowly moving out my jewelry supplies, my textiles, my sewing machines, my things like that. Now, when he would say, "Where's that stuff going?" I would just tell him, "I'm done with that." And, tell him, "I really need to focus on you and help you with your career, and, this is unimportant." So being an ego-feeding fiend, I mean, that was a real sell for him. So I just started getting my stuff out and into storage, and that gave me a real sense of peace and security, so I could return to something I loved, once I got free. So now I'm really trying to identify how I feel. I'm pulling myself back in mentally and emotionally. I'm healing myself physically. I'm saving and hiding money. I have got a storage unit where I'm putting things that are of value to me for my future. And now I'm going to start looking for a place to live. Now, initially, he found out where I was planning to move to and to rent, because of course I'd been living in his house of pain, and he called the landlord now, and of course started his smear campaign, because that's what they do. They go on this horrible smear campaign and basically tell people that you are the one doing everything that they are in fact doing. My landlord was a bit horrified to think that this weird guy was calling him, and when I asked him why, he said it was because he was afraid I had put the lease in his name. Okay, Captain Crazy. Those clouds in the morning light, we see you laughing. If your narc was anything like mine, probably had you quite isolated. The idea that I knew anyone of the male gender was just enough to send him into a rage, which in retrospect is ball busting funny because he cheated throughout the entire relationship. Yet I wasn't allowed to say hello to somebody online. It was absolutely crazy, but you need to reach out to people. You need to reconnect. I think, compared to the beating, the emotional beating and the name calling you've been experiencing, you're going to probably find there's a lot of people out there that you've been isolated from who think you're a great person. And, it certainly doesn't hurt to hear that from people. If you're anything like me, as your awareness starts to increase and you start to see the situation for what it really is, you might actually start to see your partner as they truly are. Now, my partner had implanted in me, on me, all over me, up on me, in the early stages of the love bombing, that he was, an attractive, successful, nice, funny guy. Well, certainly as his mask, kept slipping and slipping, and I could see it, and the love was wearing off, and all of this reality was coming to the surface. One day I was out with my son, and he says to me, "Mom, Trevor looks like an evil garden gnome from Middle Earth."
On a moonless night.
With the mask fully removed and my awareness heightened, and the brainwashing wearing off, I would have to admit that I had been in a 5-year narcissistic relationship with an evil garden gnome.
We wouldn't care no more. The world was just like a merry-go-round, and now true friends.
Brainwashing had progressed, and as I really was seeing him as he wanted me to see him and as he saw himself, how he truly appeared had become very marred to me. It was as if I was seeing him, through his eyes. And, we were well into our relationship when I actually realized he was only about 5'1", maxed out. And I do believe that he had a true resentment against me because I towered over him. I think he actually hated my physical being for that reason. In future videos, I'm going to continue telling my story of how I plan my exit strategy. And if you're already free or you're planning your exit strategy now, please leave a comment below and share with us, how you ultimately got free, because that's what my channel's about. It's not about learning how to cope in narcissistic abuse. It's all about getting free and going on to have a quality life without this horrible person glomming onto you.